So in screen one, we have The Rider, directed by Chloe Zhao, which is this contemporary western shot in the Badlands of South Dakota. I guess in many ways it's a bit of a misstep to call this movie a western, not only because you get into a big debate to what actually constitutes a western. For me, it's probably my favorite genre anyway, but when I personally call something a western, a lot of the time I'm referring to key tropes rather than just a western setting. But even by my own logic, I'm happy for this to be considered a western. I'm just flagging up a distinction, because if you go in expecting a quote unquote western in the most traditional sense, you will be disappointed perhaps. In The Rider, Chloe Zhao does what the Florida Project does for the residents of the motel complex called Magic Castle in Sean Baker's brilliant film, or this film does what American Honey does for the teenagers in Andrea Arnold's film. Well, The Rider does that for this part of South Dakota. And by that I mean films like Florida Project and The Rider embeds you in a community of people or a subculture you may or may not have been familiar with, and does a fantastic job of taking you into the heart of these environments and people, and really making you care for these characters, really making you learn and inform you about places you will probably never see, and become totally empathetic about the characters of these subgenres as a total outsider, and not really having a point of reference to begin with for these worlds created in these stories. But by the time you finish, you are really sad to leave this place and these characters behind. It's one of my favourite cinema going experiences. I live for that. It's probably the closest you get to that feeling of finishing a book, that kind of level of sadness. And if you have read a book, you've devoted hours and hours to it. This film manages to achieve that feeling in 90 minutes. It's truly remarkable. I mentioned before that you have no point of reference going in. I just like to clarify, obviously, I know we have basic points of references as human beings we can relate to. I'm not trying to depict these communities as akin to life on Mars, but you get my point. So the movie itself follows a character called Brady, who was once a rising star of the rodeo circuit and a gifted horse trainer, and he is warned that his riding days are over after a horse crushed his skull at a rodeo. Now, this all takes place before the film begins, so we have to try and piece together what we can in the tradition of all the best movies. It's great to fill in the blanks, and in a way, what this movie is about is how to pick yourself up once your dream has been broken, which is a nice little variation of the American dream narrative we sometimes get in movies. This movie is a lot more interested in how you approach your life and how you kind of find yourself in the situation where your dream is broken. It is certainly a more fascinating point of entry for a tale, from my point of view anyway. So Brady is this legend of a rodeo star in this community. You know, little kids all want a picture with him from time to time, little details like that. So the question is, what does somebody do when that has been taken away from them, especially around a community like this? How does Brady find his place in the world? Well, the movie looks at all that, and it's really well done. It's done in the same kind of way Kelly Reichardt shows characters trying to show their way in the world, And it's really heartbreaking to see this character actually not being able to do the things he is really gifted at. He takes a job in the local supermarket at one point, and it tells us all we need to know about what his sense of self was and the esteem he was held in that community for being a great rodeo rider and horse trainer. That sense of status totally stripped from him as he is just stacking shelves basically, and sections of the community who used to idolize him quite a bit are going into that supermarket and seeing him there. It's just such a brilliantly constructed, simple scenes like that really bring home how much of this world that is taken from him and what this world means to him and the community at large. It's almost in a way like a famous footballer without the money who had to retire due to injury. You're still deep in that world, but it means something kind of different to you now and is completely out of reach in many ways. And while, you know, as a professional footballer, you would have your millions to fall back on, Brady doesn't have that luxury. So he's lost something he's loved, he's lost his status in that community, and he's lost a way to make a living. It's interesting in many ways as well, and I guess where the modern Western element works so well, this place was once the frontier, and now in many ways it's an area left behind by America, a place that is in decline and a way of life that is fast disappearing. I was shocked to find out actually that none of the actors in this film are professional, and this story is basically based on Brady's real life in many ways, having basically suffered the same injury his character has had. And his family in this as well, which I guess is his real life family. The scenes between them in this are fantastic as well. His dad and his sister, all brilliantly acted and brilliantly realised. There is also this other ex-rodeo rider who is basically, I guess, a paraplegic named Lane, who Brady visits. And all those scenes are wonderfully done as well. And there is all these wonderful parallels as well. Like, while Lane's dream of riding again is in many ways giving him great motivation, comfort and joy, and I guess to my interpretation ties in with his rehab perhaps as well, while hanging on to that dream is really a benefit to Lane. In the case of Brady, hanging on to that dream is part of his destruction. But the film is just so well done. We actually see great characteristics and potential in Brady in other ways too. How he's training horses, and that kind of compassion is exactly how he is with his friend Lane. He is a healer, and you're almost willing him on to find answers in other directions as a viewer, writing your own happy ending for this character. It's a real achievement that I don't get from cinema often at all. There are some other nice moments as well involving the horses and how people are left to deal with pain while animals can just be disposed of. There is a great scene about that which I'm glad they included. The cinematography is top notch as well, shot by a guy named Joshua James Richards. I think he is actually the partner of the director. Well, I hope for the sake of filmmaking they continue to have a great relationship, because Chloe Zhao has arrived on the scene and is one of the most promising filmmakers there is, and I can't wait to see what she does next. It's kind of hard to do a film like this justice, because it's a movie that doesn't sound amazing on paper, and perhaps I haven't done a good enough job to make it sound amazing, but as it stands now, it's my favourite film of the year. A captivating character study about an area of America that I'm really interested in. It's probably a movie that won't get a big release, but it's definitely a movie you should seek out. I thought it was fantastic and well worth checking out.